So the Clintons aren't quite dead broke, as they say. $1 million in taxpayer money reportedly set to go to former President Bill Clinton this year alone. Washington Free Beacon reporter Lachlan Markey has the details on what he has found and what the Beacon has found. Lachlan, thanks for coming in. They have received, the Clintons as a pair have received $16 million from taxpayers since 2001, right?
That's right. And, you know, this is something that I don't think Americans in general would object to. I don't think it's particularly controversial. We don't want presidents dying as Harry Truman did in poverty. But I think, you know, controversy arises when Hillary Clinton starts making these comments about how much she and Bill have struggled since leaving the White House.
Well, there's no danger they're going to die in poverty. I mean, for example, not only the $16 million they've received, they also got, by the way, $100 million for giving speeches, which isn't exactly like breaking rocks. It's not hard duty. But the GSA also budgets about $450,000 a year for President Clinton's office space. I'm told that's a little unusual, right?
Well, there could also be another controversial aspect there, because while Hillary Clinton obviously has not declared a run for president, she's widely expected to, and she's running what looks a lot like a de facto campaign right now in her book tour and other activities. So the question arises, is taxpayer money supporting activities that could objectively be deemed political activity? It's something that should be looked into.
Well, particularly when they're making so much money on their own by giving, when you're making $100 million on speeches, do you really need that much more from taxpayers?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that that Congress or the GSA should take a look at. You know, I think there is a case to be made, and most Americans would probably agree that for the service presidents give to their country, that they should be supported after leaving office. But I think it's laughable to say that the Clintons have been struggling since they've left.
Well, you say it's laughable, and I'm wondering if the public will buy this sort of poor me attitude that the Clintons and Biden and others now have.
I think she's really trying to draw a contrast with Mitt Romney. I think that's very sort of the not-so-subtle point in a lot of what she's been saying. But when you look at people like Romney, widely successful business people, you know, this is a guy who made his money being very successful in the private sector. I think Americans have a much more favorable view of a fortune made through those sorts of avenues than they would of someone who became rich purely through sort of political pull.
If you get above the double digits in millions, I know we have inflation, and I know a million isn't what it used to be, but double-digit millions, above that, you just can't consider yourself not well off, can you?
Yeah, it's sort of been mind-boggling to watch Clinton not exactly double down, but certainly stand by and try to explain away her initial comments. She seems to be utterly convinced that there's some categorical difference between her and the Mitt Romneys or the David Kochs of the world.
Lachlan Markey. Lachlan, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So meanwhile, Vice President Joe Biden is trying to one-up Hillary after referring to himself as the, quote, poorest man in Congress. He said this.
Don't hold it against me that I don't own a single stock or bond. Don't hold it, I have no savings account. But I get a great pension and I get a good salary.
Poor guy. To our Fox Biz All-Stars, Scott, Hadley, and Lauren. Lauren, poor guy. I mean, come on. Who is he kidding?
He's clueless. He's not bragging that he's not uber rich. I mean, what kind of person do you want helping to run this country, in fact, if he doesn't have a savings account? That's clueless.
And Scott, I'm sure you got about 100 times more than he does. You're a very successful business person.
Apparently.
You pretty much run the Chicago Stock Exchange, from what I hear. But the fact is, you don't go around bashing capitalism the way some of these Democrats do. It's the hypocrisy that gets to me.
Well, David, I think it's the message that they're trying to get out where, you know, it's similar to the conversation you had with Lachlan about Hillary and Bill. I mean, they're trying to kind of make themselves like everybody else when they aren't. I mean, even Chelsea Clinton, David, in the last couple of days came out and said she doesn't care about money. She tried to care about money on a fundamental level and doesn't, yet she has an $11 million apartment in New York City, which I love, by the way, Chelsea. Still, you do care about money. I mean, David, that's how they're trying to get these votes. You know, you mentioned the book tour is about going out and doing a de facto type of, say, campaign. They want to get the votes by saying, hey, I don't have much money either. You know, I picked myself from my bootstraps up, too, because I want your vote. I'm just like you.
Yeah, and Hadley, unlike Mitt Romney, these folks are lifetime moochers, pretty much. I mean, Hillary, of course, had an experience with a law firm that she would rather forget because they, among other things, had some billing record problems. But the fact is, they're lifetime moochers. These are people that mooch off the taxpayers. That's how they get money in the first place. They continue to mooch off taxpayers, and they use that as capital, as intellectual capital, to help them make money in the private sector.
Well, sadly, this is pure and simple identity politics. It is, as Scott said, they're just trying to prove that they're one of us. But liberals in this country have been trying to fuel an us versus them mentality across the board, whether it's gender or race or wealth inequalities. And I have no problem with Hillary Clinton being a wealthy person or Joe Biden being a wealthy person. God bless them. I'm happy for them. But
own it. Yeah.
To fuel the wealth envy, that is what identity politics is, and that's where they're looking to capitalize.
And Lauren, I have to admit, I do have a problem with people who spend their life supposedly as public servants, sacrificing their personal life and fortune for the people, and then, you know, turn around and do speeches for $100,000 a pop. And again, I have no problem making money, but what I have a problem with is when you're supposed to be a public servant.
Right.
You know?
And in Hillary's case, after she made her major gaffe, we were dead broke when we left the White House. Did you see what she told the Guardian newspaper? Well, we're not truly well off. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And Scott, again, it's just this hypocrisy that gets me more than anything else. If you want to be a public servant, first of all, I'm for term limits. I don't think you should be in there long enough so you can create political and intellectual capital that you can turn into millions when you get out of office.
Well, she did a great job of that, and Bill did too. I mean, here's the thing, though. I think, like Lauren said, you got to own it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with coming out and saying, hey, you like being capitalistic, you like money. I mean, that's something that actually Americans would aspire to, David. You know, that's what's good for this economy, and they're trying to dissuade it, yet they're actually hoarding it.
Right. All right. Well, we'll see how long they get away with it. Thank you, gang. Last week,